Hi everyone, welcome back to the Grand Lodge podcast. My name is Matt Trainer and I'm the Communications Manager at Masonic KWA. I'm very excited and glad to be joined by the Right Worshipful Brother David Ganon here, who's going to be talking about a very exciting excursion that a delegation of West Australian Freemasons undertook at the start of this year in attending the grand installation of the Grand Lodge of Israel. I know that a number of people are itching to get out and start travelling again. So hopefully David's stories of the events that took place at the start of this year can tide us over until we can get back on the plane and stretch our legs and get back out there. So without any further ado, it's great to see you, David. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Matt. It's my pleasure to be here, and actually thank you for inviting me. I'm honoured to have the opportunity, and I hope, pardon me, I hope that I'll be able to impart just part of the wonderful things which happened on this particular trip.
Excellent. I'm certainly looking forward to it because I know I was just like many of who will be watching and listening to this podcast right now. I was following along back home on all the Facebook updates as they were coming through. And
yeah, Danny did a great job on that.
It was amazing. Yeah, it wasn't quite like being there, but it was pretty close.
Almost, yeah.
So, and yeah, based on that, I definitely developed an appetite into wanting to get to know a little bit more about what happened and obviously from the Masonic side of things, but you know, this is a trip of a lifetime sort of thing. And I'm sure that there were many other activities that we got up to that were outside of the Masonic series of events. So we can certainly touch on those. But I'd like you to just take it away. Can we first talk about why Israel? What is the significance of the delegation going to Israel?
Well, the original, the main reason we went to Israel, of course, is to attend the installation of the Most Worshipful Grand Master, the Most Worshipful Brother Shmulevitz, of the Grand Lodge of the State of Israel. And that was the main reason. Because of that, we thought, well, it's not much point going there just for 3 days. We may as well make a holiday of it and visit virtually, well, the birthplace of Freemasonry. I mean, if you like to put it that way. As you know, most of our ritual is based on the building of King Solomon's Temple. And of course, we have the remnants of King Solomon's Temple there in Israel. So it was important for us, I think, to extend the trip to take in Masonic sites and places of Masonic interest so that we can broaden our knowledge as far as that's concerned. Of course, we also were very fortunate to attend on the following night the installation of the most eminent first Grand Principal of the Supreme Grand Royal Arch Chapter of the State of Israel. And that was really something special. I'll talk about that a little later on. So perhaps if I just start at the beginning, for me, the highlight of the trip was to be able to go to Israel and to pray with my son at the Western Wall. So, you know, but that was my own personal highlight. There were plenty of other highlights, but that was my highlight, to be able to stand at the Western Wall, the holiest place to us Jews, and to pray with my son. So we got there 3 days before the tour actually started. We got there on the 23rd. The tour was not due to start till the 27th. So we spent the first 3 days in the Old City, exploring, going to all the important religious sites. As I said, praying at the Western Wall. We did that on several occasions. And then on the Monday, we joined the group, and that's when the tour actually started. And at this point, I'd like to send a very, very special message of thanks to Brother Rabbi Adi Cohen, because he's the one who actually put the whole thing together with his team in Israel. And really, you couldn't fault it. It was absolutely beautifully organized. We had a wonderful bus, and we had a wonderful bus driver, a wonderful tour guide, Alan Rabinovitz, and it was really magical, absolutely magical. So anyway, on the Monday, we met the group at the hotel, and on that particular afternoon, we actually went down into the Western Wall tunnels. Matt, you've got no idea what an experience that was. to see. I mean, they're still excavating down there, so it's a bit of a building site with rocks and stones and stuff everywhere. But it was really, really wonderful, and to see those massive blocks of stone. One of them weighs 980 tons, and to see the way that they were transported and placed in position so beautifully without any cracks between them whatsoever, that was really something wonderful. So we did the tunnels, and then you don't mind if I refer to some notes?
No, not at all. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So we did the Western Wall on that particular day, and that was about all that we could manage. And the next day we went to the Dome of the Rock, which is, of course, the holiest place, well, one of the holiest places in Islam. And that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. To see the way generation upon generation of building has gone on that particular site is really wonderful. And we were very fortunate to be able to visit it, because it's not until quite recently that non-Muslims have been allowed to visit that particular site. But that was wonderful, and everybody enjoyed themselves. We also went on that particular day to Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Museum. Pretty heavy going there, but and a lot of us got pretty emotional. But that was another wonderful experience. So that was the first couple of days. I'd like to say at this stage that we were delighted to have 6 ladies with us. The whole group consisted of 20 Freemasons and 6 ladies, and we were delighted to have those ladies with us. They really put a lot more glamour, if you like, into the trip. And they also gave us an insight into the feminine side of their reaction to these wonderful sites. So that was the second day. And then, of course, on the evening of the second day, which was Tuesday, we did we all got dressed up and we went to Tel Aviv, because that's where the grand installation was. We were in Jerusalem. So we went by bus to Tel Aviv, and I tell you, it was a bit of a rush getting to the hotel, getting changed, but it was really a lot of fun. We went to Tel Aviv. We attended the installation of the Grand Lodge. Unfortunately, it was not as well organized as it could have been, because, and it wasn't their fault, they didn't expect the number of visitors. There were 300 overseas visitors, would you believe, apart from their own members, who wanted to attend the installation. Some delegations were actually refused access to the installation. It was that many people there. So it was a bit of a confusing event, but the important thing is that we met up with some old friends. We made some new friends. We met the new Grand Master, the old Grand Master, or the outgoing Grand Master, and it was really quite a lovely evening. The dinner afterwards was also a little bit disrupted because of the crowd. Table numbers and seats and what have you were not strictly adhered to, so there was a bit of shuffling going on, but it was quite enjoyable. So that was that evening, and we went home feeling quite well about the whole business. So then we come to the next day, which was the Wednesday, and on that particular day we went to the Knesset, which is the Legislative Assembly, their Parliament House there, and also we went to the Supreme Court. Now the Supreme Court is built in many respects along Masonic lines, strangely enough. The builders or the designers of the Supreme Court have Masonic connections, and they incorporated into the building a lot of Masonic symbolism.
Right.
And of course, Rabbi Adi Cohen was able to explain all these things to us, point out, the columns and, the symbols and so on. And it was really, really good. And of course, then on that evening, we visited we went to the grand installation of the Supreme Grand Royal Arch Chapter of Israel, which was held in Zedekiah's cave. Now, Matt, I can't tell you what a wonderful experience that was. I mean, the lighting, and you'll see some pictures, we'll put some pictures up. The atmosphere, the lighting, it was absolutely fantastic, and they put on a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Yeah.
The highlight of which was, of course, because we had come the furthest than any other delegation, one of our members was elected or invited to be the candidate for the evening. Paul Owen. Yeah, Paul Owen actually was the candidate for the evening. And for him, it was, of course, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Several of our members took that particular degree, which I can't describe because, of course, we're not all Royal Arch Masons. But it was a wonderful experience. And the warmth, the reception we had, the warmth among the people, the new Supreme Grand, the new most eminent, whose name is Yaron, sorry, I'll put his name again, Yaron Zelim, really, really feted us. He looked after us, something, really fantastic. And the whole evening just was so wonderful. We enjoyed ourselves very much. There was no festive board afterwards, but we all went back to the hotel, had a few drinks and a meal, and it was really, really wonderful. So that was the second highlight as far as the brethren are concerned. Then on the Thursday, we went to Tel Aviv, back to Tel Aviv, where we visited the Templar village. Now, it's not the Knights Templar, it's the German Templars who settled in Tel Aviv back in the 20s. Unfortunately, they came under the influence of the Nazi regime, and most of them were deported. But they left behind some wonderful relics, if you like, of their village and their way of life. And that was most interesting, especially to the ladies. So that was interesting. And then we went to the Sarona markets, which are huge markets, selling everything from food to vegetables to, there was no clothing or anything like that, but it's mainly food. And within those markets, there are some wonderful restaurants, some of which, of course, were patronized by our brethren. So that was also wonderful. I'm skipping a few things here, Matt, because I know we're limited in time.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, on the Friday, we were very fortunate. We went to a place called Masada. Now, for those people who don't know what Masada is, it's an old fortress which was built by zealots back in the time after the destruction of the temple. After the destruction of the temple, a group of zealots, or you can call them patriots if you like, got together and they went to this fortress called Masada, which is on the top of a hill overlooking the Dead Sea. And they were virtually besieged by the Roman army, and they lasted many, many months up there until eventually they were defeated. And of course, because they knew what would happen if they surrendered to the Romans, they all decided to take their own lives rather than come under the, become slaves to the Romans. So it's quite an emotive place to visit, and the preservation there is really a credit to the State of Israel. They preserve the place very, very well indeed. The views are incredible. You really need to be there to see it. I can't describe it. It's just something undescribable.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was that. And also on the same day, of course, and I hope there'll be some pictures there, we went to the Dead Sea, and the brethren all stripped off and had a little float in the Dead Sea. It was really quite wonderful. Some of them splashed themselves with mud. The ladies, I was amazed. The ladies all got in their swimsuits, and they all got into the act. It was really wonderful. So the Dead Sea was a good thing. On the way back, we stopped at the well, we didn't actually go into the caves, but we stopped and looked at the Qumran Caves. And the Qumran Caves is where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found many, many years ago. So Matt, after that lovely day we had at the Dead Sea and all floating around, getting muddy and all the rest of it, we got back home, and on that evening, which of course was Friday, which is the beginning of the Jewish Sabbath, we were very fortunate to be invited into the home of one Rena Quinn. Now, Rena Quinn is considered now a national treasure in Israel. She's a survivor of the Holocaust, and when she was liberated, she went straight to Israel, married a rabbi who unfortunately has now passed away, God rest his soul. But she devotes her life to telling people about the Holocaust. She is a guide at Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Institute.
Right.
She's been doing that for many, many years. But in the evenings on a Friday night, she invites people to her home to taste a Jewish Sabbath meal. And we were invited there. As I say, there was 26, 27 of us there that night. A long table and beautifully furnished, lovely food. And she told us her history, which happens to be in this book. And she actually, we were able to buy one of these books, not on the Friday night, because obviously we can't handle money on Friday night. But the very next day, we went back and she actually inscribed each book.
Wow. Look at that.
Personally for each one of us. And we all bought one of these books. But she's a wonderful person. She told us her history. And of course, for the non-Jewish people there, it was quite a revelation, because it's probably the first time that they've been to a Sabbath meal, and to learn a little bit about it. I think everyone was very, very impressed. I certainly think that, and since of course coming back, we've got this little group on WhatsApp, which is the Israel trip group, and on every Shabbat, every Saturday, everyone's wishing one another, a good Shabbos, or a happy Shabbat, a good Shabbat.
Oh, that's
which
awesome.
is wonderful. So they've kept up the tradition.
Oh, fantastic.
So that has been a wonderful thing.
Great.
So my voice is going on me. Do you have any questions for me, Matt? You're just sitting there shaking your head.
I'm just enthralled in the conversation, actually. It's I'm getting flashbacks to the start of the year looking at the photos, and it's I would encourage anyone who's actually listening to this now to actually go back and watch the video version as well, because there's some amazing pictures to go alongside
that's right.
this.
That's right. The pictures that I've given you are only just a very, very small proportion of what we took over 900 pictures altogether.
Yeah.
So
I'm sort of very curious around what was the impression, I suppose, of anyone who hasn't visited Israel before, and going along to obviously participate in some once in a lifetime events is something, but what was your take from their impression?
Right. Look, I'm so pleased you asked that question, because another highlight for me was to see Israel through the eyes of the brethren and their ladies who've never been there before. They were just blown away. They were blown away. I mean, to see Jews, Christians, Muslims, Druses, all sorts of people of all different shapes, colours, size, working together in harmony. You don't get to see this on the news, unfortunately. They only show you the nasty bits. But these people are so busy living a life eking out an existence. Well, eking out, I mean, making a living and providing for the children. They got no time to fight among themselves.
Sure.
They work together. They're in harmony all the time. And I think this is one of the things that impressed the brethren and their ladies more than anything else. Of course, they enjoyed going to the marketplaces, the shooks, as they call them there, and buying little trinkets and talking to the people. But you'll have an Arab vendor here, and you'll have a Jewish vendor there, and they work in friendly competition. They live together. I mean, and the people, I think our people were really blown away by this particular thing. So to me, I think that was one of the great highlights. I must say, I didn't say very much at all. I just stood there watching everybody, and it was really wonderful for me.
Yeah.
And of course, all the time I had my son with me, which was great, and we could share some of the things that we've been talking about all our lives, really. So that was wonderful. The other thing too that the people appreciated was the friendliness and the hospitality. We had lunch and dinner in several places. I've got to tell you that we went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which was another wonderful, wonderful experience, especially for our Christian brethren. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to climb all the stairs, and there was a couple of us there were a little bit on the elderly side. But those who did go into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre were blown away by it. We also did the last 5 stations of the cross, the stations of the cross, right. Which was a very moving experience for everybody, including myself, because I'd never been there before. So that was a wonderful experience, and also the explanation which our guide was able to give us. A wonderful, very knowledgeable person, very knowledgeable in all things, all religions, all faiths. Really, it was wonderful. As you said in your opening, a once in a lifetime experience. Mm. So then, of course, we went to the Sea of Galilee, and on the way to the Sea of Galilee, we passed another place which is well known to Freemasons, Beth Horon. And every Freemason knows what that connotes. So that was quite moving to actually see the valley where the battle took place. You could almost hear the arrows whizzing overhead. It was so impressive. So that was a very interesting part of the trip, Beth Horon. And then, of course, we went to Capernaum, which, of course, was the town of Jesus. And that was a wonderful day. The sun was brilliant, and the limestone was just glowed. It was really a wonderful day. And we were given time to reflect and contemplate in private. And we just moved around the different, the synagogue where Jesus prayed and all these other places. It gave us time to reflect and to look deep into ourselves and think what it must have been like in the days of Jesus Christ when he walked those particular areas. I mean, the Sea of Galilee, we were very fortunate to see a sunrise and a sunset on the Sea of Galilee, which was wonderful. One of our friends, Lang Pope, actually stood on the Sea of Galilee. He wasn't able to walk on the water, but he actually stood on the water. It was quite fun.
David, you mentioned the Druze earlier. I'm not familiar with
Druze.
that term. Yes, the Druze.
Druze, D-R-U-Z-E.
D-R-U-Z-E.
Yeah,
Can you tell me a bit about them?
Yeah, they're a people. They've lived in. There are people who've been persecuted all over the Middle East, and I don't know when, probably around maybe the 18th, 19th century. I'm not sure. They settled in Israel in their own little conclaves. And as I say, they have their own religion, which is the Druze religion, They're not very well known, but they've lived there a long time. They're fiercely patriotic with Israel. They're Israeli citizens. Most of the men have served in the Israel Defense Forces, and they are considered one of the fiercest warriors in the world. They're a bit like the Gurkhas.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay.
Right? Like the Gurkhas are to the British Army, the Druze are to the Israeli army.
Right, okay.
I might mention that, actually. And they are fierce warriors. They whenever, the story is that whenever they take part in any kind of campaign, the enemy just runs away. They don't want to face them. They're so fierce.
Yeah.
But they're lovely people. There's a picture of one of their families.
Oh, wow,
but
right.
they're not, as I say, they're fair, blue-eyed, beautiful people, very hospitable, very hospitable. And they live by Masonic standards.
Right.
Well, by
okay.
standards that everyone should live by. So, but on there you'll find that there's the 7 principles by which they live are very Masonic. The first one, veracity in speech and truthfulness of the tongue. Brotherly love, relief, and truth. Protection and mutual aid to the brethren in faith. Relief. Renunciation of all forms of idolatry. They only worship one God. Repudiation of the devil. Confession of God's unity. Acquiescence in God's acts, and absolute submission and resignation to God's divine will in both secret and public. They cannot tell a lie. They only speak the truth.
Wow.
And as I said before, wonderful, wonderful people, very, very hospitable. We sat down, 26 or 27 of us sat down at their table for lunch, and they put on a wonderful spread for us. And the man of the house told us a little bit about their history. It was a wonderful experience.
Wow.
So that was one of the, shall we say, extracurricular things that we did. The other one, of course, was to visit a Jewish Ethiopian restaurant. Now, of course, the Ethiopians physically are the exact opposite of the Druze.
Right.
They move a lot, they sing, they dance, they're really, really wonderful people, and they have very special food. Now, the food wasn't everybody's cup of tea, I must put it that way. But when you're in a strange land with strange people, you've got to taste their food. I mean, you may not like it, but you've got to taste it. You've got to do them the honor of tasting their food. So that was another wonderful, wonderful experience, and that happened on the eve of our departure. At least Danny and I had to leave that next day, and the other people went on to Yafo, which of course is Jaffa, which of course is Joppa. Now everybody knows, all Freemasons know about Joppa, because that was the port where the timbers and all the materials for the building of the temple came. So they did a visit of Joppa, and I believe that they had a wonderful time there too. And there are some pictures of that also on the video. So that's about it, Matt. What else can I tell you? Once in a lifetime experience. I doubt that I'll ever go back to Israel at my age. I'm getting just a little bit beyond it now. But I can highly recommend it to anybody. Let me put a codicil to that. See your own country first.
Yeah.
And I think with the COVID-19 thing, people will be wanting to maybe hop in their caravans and see a little bit more of Australia. But when the time comes, and if the opportunity presents itself, Israel is a wonderful place to go to. I can highly recommend it.
Amazing. That's great. Well, David, I really want to thank you for coming in today and for sharing your time with us. It's an amazing retelling, actually. And I mean, we could keep going for hours, but I want to be respectful of your time and obviously the time of everyone else who's tuning in. So again, thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we can have you back in.
Matt, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Ash, behind the cameras there, doing a wonderful job. And yeah, I hope to see you soon when we can meet in a physical sense.
Absolutely. Great.
Thank you very much for your time.
Cheers. Thank you.